we can continue to the next presenter. And now I want to give floor to Antony Hoyte-West from Adam Mickiewicz University in Poznań, Poland, with the presentation, Official Language Certifications and the Celtic Languages, an overview of relevant offerings. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me and see me. So thank you very much. It's a great honor and a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much, Agita, for the introduction. So my topic today is going to be looking at the language certification for the Celtic languages. So without further ado, I'll get started. Qualifications, are increasingly needed in the modern world. It seems we can never have too many degrees, diplomas, certificates. And the same is true for language qualifications for a variety of purposes, professional and personal and so on. Today, basically, I'm going to be speaking about those language proficiency certifications that are aimed at adult learners. These will be different for those qualifications that you get from following a course. Basically, these are the examinations that test language skill at a certain level. I've chosen the Celtic languages because they are all members of the same linguistic family. They're all spoken largely within a similar geographical area, as I'll explain later. And interestingly, all of the Celtic languages have been subject to similar historical and contemporary external pressures. So my study today builds on some previous work that I have been doing and presented last year and published, which compared Catalan, Irish, and Upper Sorbian language certificates, given the very different sociolinguistic context of those languages. So the Celtic languages, well, they're a subfamily of Indo-European. Formerly, in ancient times, they were spoken across the European continent up until the 6th or 7th century AD, in fact. Now, however, they're mostly limited to the periphery of Europe, to the British Isles and to Brittany in northwestern France. There are 6 modern Celtic languages, and I've listed them here: Breton, Welsh, Cornish, Manx, Irish, and Scottish Gaelic. Now, 4 of these languages, Breton, Welsh, Irish, and Scottish Gaelic, have been spoken uninterruptedly. 2 have been revived or revitalized, principally in the late 20th century. These are both Cornish and Manx. They had died out in the 19th century and 18th century, respectively. All of these languages have suffered from oppression during the last centuries. Dominant ideologies, ethno-linguistic policies that promoted the major languages of nation states, mostly English in the case of the 5 languages spoken in the British Isles, and French in the case of Breton spoken in Brittany. And the languages have also been affected by prolonged contact with those 2 major languages, English and French, and the fact that these languages, these Celtic languages, held a much lower status. There was diglossia, for example. This leads us to the state where only Irish holds the first, the language as, the status of official language of a nation state. It's also now, since 2007, official European Union language. So in the European Parliament, the MEPs are able to speak Irish and receive interpretation in and out of that language. Due to the factors that I mentioned previously, it's quite difficult to estimate the number of speakers. Welsh is the language that's doing the best in terms of number of speakers at present. There's around about 500,000 in Wales. They've had a number of very positive language policies there to promote and promulgate the language. Breton Irish is much smaller as well, smaller, 200,000. And then for Manx, Manx, Scottish Gaelic, and Cornish, much smaller numbers. So turning to language certifications, I imagine that many of you have had to sit different language exams during your educational and professional careers. As I mentioned at the beginning, the focus of this study is on certifying linguistic proficiency for adult candidates. One thing that I'm sure you're all familiar with is the so-called CEFR, the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages. And this was set up for the Council of Europe a few decades ago. And it's essentially a competency-based language proficiency scale running from A1 basic user through B1, B2 independent user, and then up to C2 proficient user mastery. There's also an official organization, the Association for Language Testers in Europe, ALTE, and it was created principally to provide best practice procedures in language assessment, that is the development of these tests. Now, there is a great deal of research focusing on language testing, on different skills and so on and so forth. Not so much research, however, relating to those certificates for minority and minoritized languages, such as the Celtic language I've mentioned here. And this is the reason for my current focus. In terms of the method, I mean, this is very exploratory. It's going to be a comparative analysis based on web-based information and a preparation for further studies in the future. I developed 5 basic research questions. Firstly, what are the relevant language certifications that are available for the Celtic languages? How long have they been available? Who is the relevant awarding body? Which levels of the Common European Framework are available? And also, what degree of recognition do they have, both locally, internationally, and at the national level? For Irish, there is the European Certificate in Irish. The Irish abbreviation is TEG. This is Jopa Naguega. It's been available for almost 20 years, since 2005, and it's offered by Maynooth University, which is part of the wider National University of Ireland. Examinations are offered at 5 levels of the Common European Framework, that is from A1 level basic user up to C1 level proficient user. There is no C2 level currently available. These examinations are recognized nationally. So, for example, students who want to do teacher training, become teachers through Irish, the TEG exams are recognized as a certification of language skills. Also, the TEG qualification is provides eligibility for certain scholarships through the Advanced Irish Language Skills Initiative. So for those candidates who have a C1 level validated proficiency, that leads to further benefits for them. The awarding body is a full member of the Association for Language Testers in Europe, and all the TEG qualifications are accredited with a special KITE mark, the ALTE Q mark, which means that they really demonstrate a high level of conformity with ALTE's best practice. If you'd like to sit the examinations, well, you can do it not only in the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland, but also internationally. The examination can be sat, for example, in Czech Republic and Prague, in the United States, in New York City and Minnesota, and also in France and Paris. Moving on to Welsh, there is a framework called Welsh for Adults. It's been available also for around 20 years, and it replaced older qualifications. It's offered by an organization called WJEC, the Welsh Joint Examinations Council. 4 levels are offered at present, from A1 level up to B2. Basically the highest level of independent user. In the past, also, there was a C1 level qualification available, but that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. It too is a full member of ALTE. This qualification, however, as far as I could ascertain, is available principally within Wales itself. Moving to Breton, as I mentioned, spoken in Brittany, there is a qualification called the Diplôme de Compétence en Langue, DCL. And it's a French state qualification offered by the Ministry of Education there, and that's been available for just over 10 years. In fact, a degree in December 2010 laid the groundwork for the foundation of the diploma being awarded in Breton and also in Occitan, basically regional languages of France. The Diplôme de Compétence en Langue is also available in other languages as well, mostly international languages. It's available from the A2 level, that's up to C1 level. And in terms of the Breton certification, it's of course recognized by the French state, and it's very useful for acquiring certain jobs, for example, becoming a Breton teacher or teaching in schools where Breton is one of the media of instruction. For Cornish, as I've mentioned, this is a revived, revitalized language. There's a series of what they call graded examinations, and they've been available for some time. I couldn't find out exactly, but the awarding body, the Cornish Language Board, was founded in the 1960s, so it definitely has a long pedigree. Now, these examinations, they're on 4 levels, and they're not linked to the Common European Framework. They're available principally in Cornwall, but there's also Cornish classes available at an adult education college in London. Now, these examinations offered by the Cornish Language Board are not nationally accredited. However, a new qualification offered by the WJEC that I mentioned before with regard to Welsh, a new qualification at entry level is, and that qualification was especially commissioned by the County Council in Cornwall. For the last two languages, Manx and Scots Gaelic, at present, there's no qualifications that are directed specifically at adult learners in those two languages. So adults who want to certify their proficiency, they can take qualifications that are designed for school pupils. They can take them as external candidates at certain examination centers. For Manx, there is the GCSE equivalent qualification. That's typically the exam students take in Britain when they're aged around 15 or 16. And there's also an A-level equivalent offered in Manx as well. That's the qualification that students in Britain typically take when they're 18 years old. For Scots Gaelic, there's a series of awards, examination from the Scottish Qualifications Authority. They also differentiate between learners of the language and native or L1 speakers. And these are offered at a number of different levels at school, all the way from national 3, 4, and 5. So again, pre-equivalent to maybe 14 or 15 years old, 16, higher, and then advanced higher, which is equivalent to the qualification taken school leaving at 18 years old. However, for Scots Gaelic, there are a number of moves to create an accreditation system to certify candidates' knowledge, the so-called CLAG framework, and that's supported by the relevant governmental and institutional bodies. So just to conclude, 4 of the 6 Celtic languages have certification programs currently for adult learners. These qualifications usually been around for some time, usually over a decade. Of these qualifications, 3 are aligned with the Common European Framework. 2 of them are members of ALTE, and Irish even has the Q mark for the TEP qualifications. These qualifications are available at a range of levels of the Common European Framework, but importantly, there's no C2 level, which is the highest level. There's not, none of the Celtic languages offers that level at present. These qualifications are generally quite widely recognized, mostly at the local or national level. With regard to Manx and Scots Gaelic, there are other examination options available. However, I think for all the Celtic languages, it remains to be seen what happens in the future, whether increased availability of these qualifications could also lead to greater uptake and promotion and promulgation of these languages. Here's my list of references. And so I would like to just say thank you very much for listening, Paldies. I hope my pronunciation is all right in Latvian.
Yeah, paldies.
Paldies.
Thank you
Okay.
for the very interesting and enlightening and professional presentation.